I was told by the doctor to get checked out at the OBGYN, and I got a referral. We might become parents.
Mike would be happy to hear this. That's what I thought. But Mike's words were nothing like I had imagined. Huh? Seriously? Mike frowned, propping his cheek and sighing.
What's wrong? We've been trying for so long. Isn't it great that we might finally have a baby?
Pregnant? I don't know about that. Please, just stop talking. You know you're living off me, and now you're planning to have a kid and spend even more? Who do you think is supporting us? It's because I work overtime and on weekends, right? I was dumbstruck by his ungrateful tone. My brief joy about the long-awaited pregnancy felt like it had plunged me into hell. I don't want to come home to a messy house and the sound of a crying child. There's no point in being married to you if you're pregnant. Just get out of the house. Hearing that, I felt foolish for enduring everything until now. I silently went to my room and began packing. I'm Emily. I'm a working housewife with a home-based job. I live with my husband Mike, who is 2 years older than me. While balancing my job, I've also been managing the household chores, trying to alleviate Mike's tiredness. We've been married for 5 years. When you live with someone for a long time, you start to see their less favorable sides. And I've experienced this too. Mike often leaves the house for work, citing his job as the reason. He has a lot of overtime, and it seems like he's working on weekends almost every day. I've been worried about his health not breaking down. Hey, you've been working overtime a lot lately, haven't you? Are you okay? Yeah, but it can't be helped. It's not just me, everyone's having a tough time. I can't just be the only one not doing overtime, right? That might be true, but I'm worried about your health. Can't you at least cut down on working weekends? No way, no way. If I don't work on weekends, the workload just increases during the week. It's more efficient to get it done while other companies are off, right? I understand what you're saying, but can't you take at least one day off? I really want to spend more time with you. Mike, looking exasperated, glanced at me and said, You're always at home, so you might not understand the work situation. There are times when a man has to stand firm, and this is one of those times. Have you never heard of work-life balance? I was appalled by his outdated comments. Come on. Don't be jealous at your age. It's not pleasing at all to be jealous of a 36-year-old woman, unlike a young girl. I was speechless at Mike's harsh words. Is this how you speak to a wife who's worried about you? I had to respond. That's no way to speak. What's wrong with being concerned about an overworked husband? Enough already. I'm tired and don't want to listen to a wife nagging. Remember, you're living off my earnings, so don't complain. Mike left the living room in frustration. I cared about Mike, yet why did I have to be spoken to like this? I was at a loss about how to deal with Mike. On a certain weekend day, Mike had the whole day off. But it wasn't to spend time with me. We were going to visit Mike's parents. Mike's parents lived about a 30-minute drive away. Mike had a good relationship with his parents, especially his mother, who was very indulgent with him. Mike also tends to listen to everything his mother says. I've always found it difficult to get along with my mother-in-law like that. My father-in-law, a reasonable man, often steps in to calm her down when she gets too out of control. He's always been kind to me, his daughter-in-law. However, he's the president of a company and often busy with work, so he's not around much. Mike works at the company that his father runs.
Mike, welcome home. Come on in. I'm home, Mom.
His mother addressed only Mike, ignoring me as usual. Mike didn't seem to find anything wrong with the situation. Hello, mother-in-law, it's been a while. As I spoke, she finally acknowledged me, saying, Oh, Emily, you're here too, before continuing to talk with Mike as they walked inside. Then, Mike's father appeared at the entrance, looking sorry to me. Sorry, Emily. It's good to see you, come in. Hello, father-in-law. Thank you, I will. Watching Mike and his mother chatting on the sofa, his father scolded them.
You two, why did you leave Emily outside and go in first? You should have invited her in together.
Oh, I did call out to her. She could have just come in on her own. In one's husband's home, you can't just walk in on your own. We invited her, so it's our duty to be considerate. You should understand that, being a daughter-in-law yourself. Dad, don't say so much to Mom. She was just happy I came home. she probably got a bit carried away. I don't understand why a grown son's rare visit would make her so overly happy. My father-in-law shook his head and was sorry again. However, Mike and his mother, seemingly clueless about what they did wrong, never had a word for me. As I was about to sit on the sofa, my mother-in-law called me over. With an uncomfortably wide smile. "Emily, can you help me make some tea?" "Yes." I responded and followed her to the kitchen. As soon as we were alone, the smile vanished from her face, and she spoke in a low voice. "Hurry up and make the tea. Don't forget to prepare the snacks too." When we visit the in-laws, my mother-in-law always assigns me housework. When my father-in-law isn't looking. She knows she'll get scolded by him if he finds out. What a sneaky person. But I've gotten used to it. While I was preparing the tea, she continuously criticized me. My clumsiness. The snacks I brought weren't to her taste. My supposedly unlucky-looking face. She went on, finally concluding with this statement. "Honestly, I can't understand why Mike married someone like you. It's amazing how she never tires of bad-mouthing her daughter-in-law." At first, I was deeply hurt, but after 5 years of the same routine, I become numb to it. For minor things, I would just say "you're right," putting on a fake expression. I learned to let it go in one ear and out the other. Perhaps finding my lack of reaction uninteresting, she continued her verbal abuse. "You've been married for 5 years and still no children? Are you barren or something?" Her words made me freeze. It was something I had always been sensitive about. I wanted children since the beginning of our marriage. Her intrusion into such a delicate topic made me struggle to contain my anger. Noticing my different reaction, she seemed to decide to press on this issue. "Mike is our only son. Isn't it the duty of a wife to bear an heir? Don't you understand that?" "Well, I do want children. But children are a blessing. I don't want to hear excuses. You're failing in your duties as a wife. You should just get divorced." Just as I was about to retort to such insensitivity, my father-in-law entered the kitchen. "It's taking quite a while. What's happening here?" "Oh, Dad. Nothing, I'm just bringing the tea now." Pretending as if she had prepared it herself, my mother-in-law took the tray from me and carried the tea and snacks into the living room. "Emily, are you okay? Did Mom say something to you again?" "No, I'm fine." It seemed like my father-in-law hadn't heard our earlier conversation. I found it painful to bring up that topic myself. Containing my anger, I answered him with a smile. As if nothing had happened, my mother-in-law was chatting amiably with Mike. The tea I drank while looking at her face tasted bland. I wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. That thought constantly crossed my mind. Some months after visiting the in-laws, Mike was still caught up with his usual routine of overtime and working on weekends. I had been feeling unwell for several days, finding it hard to even get out of bed. I managed to do the bare minimum around the house, but Mike seemed oblivious to the change. His insensitivity was a relief at that moment. The ongoing health issues made me think I should visit the doctor. At the local clinic, the doctor gave me unexpected news. That night, as I was warming up dinner for Mike, who returned home late, I spoke to him. "Hey, there's something I need to tell you." "What is it? Does it have to be today?" "I'm tired from work." Even on his days off, he wouldn't be home. I almost said that but stopped myself just in time. Ignoring Mike's question, I continued. "I've been feeling unwell for a few days, so I went to the clinic today. They said I might be pregnant." "What?" Mike's eyes widened as he looked at me. I thought this might stop the nagging from my mother-in-law. Thinking that, I felt a bit relieved. "They told me to get a detailed checkup at the OB/GYN, and I got a referral. We might become parents." Mike would be happy. That's what I thought. But his reaction was nothing like I had imagined. "Huh? Seriously?" He frowned, propped his cheek, and sighed. "What's wrong? We've been trying for a long time. Isn't it great that we might finally have a baby?" "Pregnant? I don't know about that. Just stop talking. Why would you say that? You knew I've wanted a child since we got married, right?" Mike sighed deeply again. I was the one who wanted to sigh. "You know, you're living off me, and now you plan to have a child and spend even more? Who do you think is supporting us? It's because I work overtime and on weekends, right?" His ungrateful tone left me stunned. My brief happiness about the pregnancy felt like being dropped into hell.
I don't want to come home to a messy house and the sound of a crying child. There's no point in being married to you if you're pregnant. Just leave the house.
Hearing those words, all my patience seemed foolish. I silently went to my room and started packing. I acted quickly from there. I found a new place to move into immediately, arranged for movers, and sent all my belongings to the new house. Within a week, I had completed the move, left the divorce papers on the table, and left the house. The next day, I received a message from Mike saying he had filed the divorce papers. All the time I had endured felt wasted. 5 years of marriage had ended so abruptly. About 6 months after the divorce, I received a call from Mike. I didn't notice it at the time because I was at work, but there were over 20 missed calls just that morning. There had been occasional calls every few weeks before, but I had no desire to speak with someone I had divorced and had ignored them. However, this many missed calls was unusual. It might be an emergency. Thinking that, I decided to call Mike back. He answered after just one ring.
Finally, you pick up. You're so slow.
He yelled as soon as I answered. I regretted calling him back.
What's your deal?
What do you mean?
I don't understand. Don't play dumb. It's about the rent. I just got a call saying it's been unpaid for 6 months, including the utilities. What's going on?
His absurd accusation almost made me laugh. It wasn't a conversation to have with an ex-husband.
If there are overdue bills, just pay them.
Why are you calling me about this?
Your account was set up for the withdrawals, right? Why did you change it as soon as you left? Doing something like this, you're really mean. It's obvious I would stop the automatic withdrawals. Why should I pay for rent and utilities for a house I don't even live in anymore?
There was silence on the other end of the line. He was probably overwhelmed with confusion at my unexpected response.
What? You're saying you were paying the living expenses?
Mike finally started talking, his tone mocking.
Don't be ridiculous. You were living off me. There's no way you had the means to do that.
What are you talking about?
Thinking you were supporting me is a big misunderstanding. Just your salary alone wouldn't be enough for 2 adults to live on. What? I'm the son of a company president. Of course, I make a lot.
Being a president's son means a high salary? What kind of logic is that? I had to show him the reality.
Have you ever looked at your pay stubs? Why don't you check them right now? Let's talk after that.
Mike seemed to get irritated with my responses. He said just wait, presumably to look for his pay stubs.
It was payday this week. Hold on, I'll check right now.
When the call suddenly cut off, I checked my smartphone screen, wondering if the signal was bad. The signal was fine. It seemed Mike had just stopped talking abruptly.
What? What's this amount? What does this mean? I don't know the reason, but your salary is significantly lower compared to others your age.
Mike seemed unable to accept the reality, muttering disbelief over the phone. Not sure if he was listening, but I continued.
Yet, you lived in a luxury apartment and splurged on designer goods, thinking you're the president's son. How could someone with such spending habits pay for living expenses and rent?
No, that's because I have to wear things befitting the president's son.
Why buy things beyond your salary? It's because you don't face reality that things turned out this way.
Hey, you must be struggling since the divorce, right? Remarry me, and we can live together again. Mike laughingly made this shameless proposition. After all he's put me through, which nerve was he talking with? I responded firmly and clearly.
The thought of remarrying someone as out of touch with reality as you is unimaginable. I'm doing fine with my job, don't worry. Life's been fun since I left you. Don't bother me. Job? Don't act high and mighty. It's just a part-time job, right? Must be barely making ends meet. Being with me is your best option. It's not part-time. I've been working from home even before our divorce, which I've told you. You never remember anything I say.
Working from home? I don't know about that. Anyway, you can't be making more than pocket money. So, let's remarry and…
Mike, desperate to reconcile, was interrupted as I delivered a crushing blow. I'm an entrepreneur.
Entrepreneur?
Yes. My business is on track and performing well. So, I have absolutely no need to remarry you. He thought he had been supporting his ex-wife, only to find out she was an entrepreneur and the president of a company. This revelation must have been a crushing blow to Mike's pride, who had been complacent in his status as the president's son. I felt vindicated after years of being belittled. However, his response was unexpected.
Entrepreneur, huh? You said business is good, so you must have plenty of money. Then you can support me, right?
I was stunned and at a loss for words when Mike, who I thought had high pride, made a statement that showed not a shred of it. It's surprising how people can act so recklessly when they are pushed to their limits. We're divorced, you know? We're no longer related. There's no way I'm going to pay money for a complete stranger.
Wait, Emily!
There's nothing more to discuss. Don't call me again about such nonsense. Bye. Despite Mike's continued protests, I mercilessly hung up. I ignored several more calls that came in afterwards. Eventually, he must have given up, as the calls stopped coming. I looked at my quiet smartphone and finally felt relieved. How long had it been since I talked to Mike? In the midst of my busy life, I hadn't kept track. The phone rang again, and without checking the screen, I answered. I decided then to always check who's calling, no matter how busy I am. It was Mike on the line. He was in a bad mood again, raising his voice.
There's a rumor going around the office that I'm cheating. You did something out of spite, didn't you?
Look, I'm not so idle as to bother someone I never want to deal with again. It wasn't me.
That's impossible. Who else would benefit from spreading such a lie? I'm going to demand a damage claim for this.
It was clear he just wanted to squeeze some money out of me. Giving him money would be like throwing it down the drain. I wouldn't comply. I began to speak in a mocking tone. Maybe it's because of that, I guess.
You know something about it? It is your fault, isn't it?
Of course, I haven't been spreading any rumors. But I did consult your father, who is also your company's president, about your affair.
What? You talked to my dad?
Mike asked, sounding panicked. Maybe he thought I didn't know, or perhaps he was just shocked that his father knew. But that's beside the point. Before I told Mike about the pregnancy, I had grown suspicious of his frequent overtime and weekend work. My father-in-law, being a busy man himself, was often not at home. But I couldn't believe that a reasonable man like my father-in-law would enforce such work practices on his son and other employees. That's why I hired a detective to investigate Mike's activities. The results were damning. Mike was indeed having an affair with a female coworker from his company. Not just Mike, but the affair involving his coworker meant I had to inform his father, the president. I sent evidence to the company addressed to the president. Probably, my father-in-law must have taken some action. And that's how the rumors started in the office.
What? Dad knows about it? What have you done?
Don't get mad at me. You shouldn't have cheated in the first place. I owed a lot to your father. I couldn't overlook a staff member brazenly having an affair.
You're making unnecessary trouble. Damn, my position.
He seemed overly concerned about his status, despite not earning enough to support a wife. Hearing him mutter to himself was a waste of time. I hung up the phone. A few days later, my father-in-law called me. Emily, it's been a while. Do you have a moment? Hello, it's been a while. Yes, I'm available. Good. I'm sorry for the trouble my foolish son has caused you. No, you're not to blame. It's all Mike's doing. Well, yes, but I also feel responsible for my lack of oversight. I can't apologize enough for the discomfort you've experienced. Mike's behavior was disgraceful, making his earnest father say such things. Neither the previous call nor this one included any apologies for Mike. It's sad to see a grown man making his parents apologize on his behalf. Due to the affair in the company, we had to take serious action. The woman involved was demoted and transferred to another department, and Mike was fired. Fired? But for an office affair? It wasn't just about this incident. Did you know about Mike's salary? Yes, but he mostly spent it however he liked, hardly contributing to the household. Unbelievable. There was a reason for that salary amount. He sighed. After a brief silence, he gently asked me, "Can I tell you something?" I replied, "Sure." He just strutted around, boasting he was the president's son and didn't do any work. He even threatened others that he'd tell on them to the president. I had suspected something about his salary, but not to this extent. He was so selfish. I was glad I divorced him. For someone like him, just being my son doesn't justify a high salary. That's why his salary was that low. Even though you're the respected one, he was acting like a fox wearing the skin of a tiger. My father-in-law laughed. Exactly. As a president, I don't regret my decision. But it seems to have shocked Mike. He came back home and has been shut in his room since then. Don't worry about it, Emily, he said, ending the call. I felt sorry for causing trouble to my father-in-law, but satisfied about Mike's comeuppance. After a month since that call, I received a message from my mother-in-law. Come to our house. It was a brief command to come to their house. To me, their house was like enemy territory. I didn't want to go. But I had things to say to her. After contacting my father-in-law, who agreed to be there, I decided to go. Well, you came, said my mother-in-law emotionlessly as she opened the door. As usual, she didn't invite me in but went straight inside. Back when I was their daughter-in-law, such behavior from my mother-in-law used to confuse me, but now I don't need to concern myself with her attitude. I followed her, now indifferent to her attitude. In the living room, only my mother-in-law was present. Just you? Yes. I sent my husband on an errand. Because of you, Mike won't leave his room. Poor thing, she said, not offering me a seat, and sat on the sofa, glancing at me. She must know that if my father-in-law were there, he would scold her for being rude to me. She must have sent her husband away on purpose. Such a cunning person. I sat on a dining chair, keeping my distance. What's the reason you called me here? I asked, getting straight to the point, and my mother-in-law frowned. She seemed displeased that I was controlling the pace of the conversation. It's simple. Emily, remarry Mike. I was taken aback, expecting verbal abuse, but not this. Considering she disliked me, why would she want her son to remarry someone she loved? No. I will never reconcile with Mike. And frankly, I don't think it's your place to discuss this. But Mike has been so affected by what you did that he can't even leave his room, let alone go outside. You should take responsibility for that. Whether Mike twisted the truth or my mother-in-law misunderstood, it didn't matter, but the truth was entirely different. Mike betrayed me first. He threw me out when I thought I might be pregnant and then had an affair with a coworker. I can never forgive that. She reacted strongly to a particular part of my statement. Her expression seemed to say, that's it. That's it. You're pregnant, right? You plan to make a child live without a father? It's better for a child to have both parents. No, it's not necessary, I firmly replied. My refusal made her face turn red with anger, and she slammed her hand on the table. What's with you? Talking back and being insolent. A daughter-in-law should just listen to her mother-in-law. Perhaps it was a shrill voice. With a piercing voice that was almost painful to the ears, my mother-in-law shouted. I have no desire to be with such a person. Besides, I'm not pregnant. What? When she heard I wasn't pregnant, her expression became a mix of confusion and sadness. What do you mean? Didn't the hospital say you were pregnant? That's what Mike told me. I only received a referral from my general practitioner to get a detailed check at an OBGYN. It turned out to be just a health issue, not pregnancy. What? My mother-in-law looked utterly devastated. She must have hoped to use the child to force a reconciliation with Mike. It was a naive plan. I wouldn't want to raise a child with someone who couldn't be happy about me being pregnant. So, there's no need to worry about a child's father. I will never remarry Mike. What? You don't care about Mike anymore? Don't you feel sorry for him? I feel nothing. He's a stranger to me now. Suddenly, she lunged at me. I thought she was going to hit me. Just at that moment. What are you doing? My father-in-law, returning from shopping, stepped in between my mother-in-law and me. But she's terrible. She won't even help Mike. She's only thinking about herself. Heartless. How many times do I have to say it? Mike was the one who was disrespectful first. You always lose sight of everything else when it comes to Mike and act impulsively. Enough is enough. My mother-in-law broke down crying. Her blind maternal love had created a codependent relationship between her and Mike. Even after he left home and had his own family, they couldn't let go of their distorted affection for each other. They both seemed pitiful to me. I'm here today to tell you that I will be filing for spousal support. My mother-in-law, who had been shouting at me, was now choking on her tears, making her words unintelligible. It was certainly verbal abuse directed at me. Yes, that's right. Of course, you should do that. I'll cover Mike's part and pay it in full, then I'll make sure he repays me. Don't worry, I won't let his mother get close to him. In the end, my father-in-law was the only one on my side. My mother-in-law continued to wail incoherently. When my father-in-law shouted that he would divorce her if she continued to spoil Mike and told her to change her attitude, she hung her head. Despite all the commotion, Mike never showed his face. Later, I filed for spousal support through a lawyer against Mike. Both were paid in full. According to my father-in-law, Mike has started working part-time and is repaying him monthly. He knows if he's late even once, I'll transfer the debt, so he's been on time so far. My father-in-law said with a laugh. My mother-in-law tried to work and give the money to Mike, but he threatened divorce, and she backed down. Both Mike and his mother need to change their ways. As for my father-in-law, his struggles are immeasurable, but I hope they can instill some sense into them. As for me, work is going well, and I'm busy as ever. My father-in-law, who is a company president and also senior, has become a strong advisor for my work, which is very reassuring. For now, I plan to enjoy my carefree single life.